Hey everyone, Mission Chicken here. Today I'm going to be showing you the Feraligatr deck list I played for my friend Hitmonchen's Temporal Forces tournament, where we played a bunch of the new Temporal Forces archetypes against each other in a tournament-style series of videos, which the first round that Feraligatr is featured in should be up at the exact same time that this video is going up. So if you're coming from there, welcome. I'll just show you the exact list I played and then provide some commentary to maybe potential changes I'll play afterwards. If you haven't seen those videos, you can look at the deck list and then go check out the link for Hitmonchen's video in the description and watch some gameplay of the deck. So with that said, we'll go through it. I'll talk about my reasoning for all the cards I played, and then at the end, once everything's laid out, I'll point out some things that would potentially change in the future due to some clumping issues that the deck kind of experienced through the rounds. So let's start. Starting off with 4 Totodile, it is the main basic that's going to evolve into our main attacker, and so 4 is just the most logical thing for consistency to get out as many as possible as we can in turn 1 as well as the turns to come. Then I play the one Croconaw because it is not only a actually decent attacker, which I'll explain in a second when we look at another Pokemon how that kind of adds up, but it also just lets us get Feraligatrs out more consistently, not having to rare candy every single time. We can use a Croconaw to evolve up slowly. As we rare candy one, we can Croconaw evolve on the bench, and then we use less rare candies. It makes us, not need to find as much. Makes our lives a little easier putting more attackers into play. Then we've got our main attacker, Feraligatr. If you don't know what this card does, it's got an ability, Torrent Heart. Once during your turn, you can put 5 damage counters on it, and then its attacks this turn do 120 more damage. And it's 180 HP, 1 prizer. For 2 water, it does 160, so Torrent Heart boosts this attack to 280. That's your bread and butter. You take 5 damage counters. It's kind of fine. You're a 1 prizer. You're probably getting knocked out anyways, and then you do 280 damage basically every turn, which is pretty good. Then I've got 2-2 Bibarel line. This is just our consistency engine. We do need to find a lot of pieces to consistently set up stage 2s every single turn, as it's our main attacker, so Bibarel lets us draw cards often, and it's just a pretty good consistency engine going into the rotation in a lot of different decks. Then I've got a 1-1 line of Palkia. This can obviously be used as an attacker. Palkia is still a good attacker, and something maybe to fall back on as an attacker on turn 2 if you whiffed your Candy and Feraligatr on the turn 2. So it can attack early a little bit easier, but the main thing we want it for is just Star Portal utility. Overall, Palkia can hit a max of 260 and it's a 2 prizer, while Feraligatr can do 280 on a 1 prizer. So Feraligatr is actually just the outright better attacker. It's just a matter of resources and consistency getting Feraligatrs out that we don't always get that luxury. But we don't really want to attack with Palkia. It's just there if we need it. Star Portal is mainly what the reasoning is for in the deck. We can use it to accelerate a bunch of energy to different Feraligatrs and set them up a lot easier. Then I've got Radiant Greninja. Kind of combos well with Palkia, being able to charge up Greninja with Star Portal, as well as use concealed cards to get energy in the discard for Star Portal. And also lets us draw cards and more consistency to the deck. Greninja is just a fantastic Pokemon in pretty much any water deck, most decks in general even, but especially in a water deck that we can accelerate to and use its attack, it's really good. Then we've got Relicanth. This is the Pokemon I was talking about when referring to Croconaw and even Totodile's attack. This is another new card with this set. Its ability Deepen Memories. Each of your evolved Pokemon can use any attacks from its previous evolutions. You still need the energy to use them, but it lets us copy Croconaw or Totodile's attacks, which are both just 1 energy, and they only do 10 and 30 damage, but they all have a nice effect and can be boosted by Torrent Heart. So we have Totodile for 1 energy, which does 10, boosted to 130 with Feraligatr's ability, that traps the defending Pokemon in the active. It does not let it retreat, which can be good utility. And then we've got Croconaw for 130, boosted to 150 with Torrent Heart, and it switches out. So these are both decent attacks for utility purposes in different scenarios, as well as allowing Feraligatr to attack easier for just 1 energy. If you ever miss the double attachment on turn 2, you can still get Relicanth down, Candy of Feraligatr, and use one of these 2 Pokemon's attacks, boosted by Torrent Heart, for good damage to just one-shot a 1 prizer still, or get a different effect like switch out, sack off Relicanth because we've gotten utility out of it and preserve the Feraligatr, or trap a liability 2 prizer in the active that we can't quite knock out yet. Trap it there, then we can knock it out the next turn. Next for supporters, starting off with 4 Irida, bread and butter in any water deck really. Irida is just a great supporter, letting us get most of the pieces we need, water Pokemon and item, that can just turn into the basic Candy Feraligatr or whatever other pieces we're looking for on that turn. Like if we're going turn 1 second, it can be basic search, anything really. Irida's just solid. Then I've got 3 Iono. Iono is another really solid supporter. You don't really want to be discarding a ton of cards with a deck like this. You don't want to research away a bunch of candies and valuable pieces like that. So Iono lets us preserve our resources, draw a lot of cards in the early game, disrupt our opponents in the late game, as well as refresh our hand if it's kind of clogged. We can stick all that garbage to the bottom and draw new cards with Bibarel. Finally, I've got Boss's Orders, just good to chase things down. We do a solid amount of damage, but we're still not going to be OHKOing some of the like big stage 2 EXs, so if we ever need to chase down something, or we want to boss a liability like Luminion V, Rotom V for game, and just finish out, we can do that. Next, I have search cards. So we've got 4 Buddy Poffin. This is a new sort of VIP replacement almost. Lets us get 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less at any turn of the game. So we can use these in future turns to search Pokemon out, but it doesn't let us get like our Radiant Greninja, Relicanth, or Palkia, but it still lets us get our core Pokemon out of Totodile and Bidoof and set up some of our Pokemon. And we've still got other search cards for the other couple like one-ofs. Speaking of search cards, 4 Ultra Ball and 3 Nest Ball. Pretty standard search cards. 4 Ultra Ball is really good because we can discard bad cards and draw more with Bibarel as well, and then Nest Ball is just more basic search. Then as a stage 2 attacking deck, we're definitely playing 4 Rare Candy. We need as many of these as possible to get a bunch of Feraligatrs in play. 2 Super Rod to reuse our lines. Since it is our main attacker and we're only playing 3 Feraligatr, we're definitely going to want to recycle them at some point if we ever want to attack with more. We can also use Rod to recycle Croconaw, which can then act as a not only 5th but even 6th way to get into a Feraligatr. So those are pretty good. And we've got a couple one-ofs. So, 1/1 Palkia, if we ever need to discard either piece early, it gets knocked out. Maybe we want to reuse Greninja, like we attacked with it, it gets knocked out. We want to put it back on the board just for draw power throughout the game. Rod does all of that. Next, 2 switch cards. One of the issues with this deck is the energy acceleration. We lost Raihan as well, which would have been a great card with this deck because we're getting knocked out often, and it would have let us set up new Feraligatrs easy. So we don't have a lot of energy acceleration, and Baxcalibur doesn't feel good to play in this deck because it's another stage 2 and kind of gets in the way of Feraligatr. We really need to be focusing on setting them up instead of a different stage 2. So that's why Star Portal's here. But it can't do everything. We can only use Star Portal once, and we can't Star Portal to things like Relicanth or Bibarel, while we don't really have the luxury of attaching to retreat, because we need to go attach, and turn 2 attacks. If we ever start something like Bidoof, Relicanth, switch is good, then our opponents later in the game can stick our Bibarel. We don't really have other ways of moving it other than just a raw switch. So switch can be good to get things that aren't Feraligatr essentially out of the active. Next, 2 Earthen Vessel. We really need to get the energies out onto the board and into play somehow, whether they're in the discard and they can be Star Portaled back or attached, and we can preserve them with XP shares. We have pretty good use of them once they're in play, but we really need to get them out. So a couple Earthen Vessel lets us search for them, concealed cards away, draw more cards, and attach for a turn. So it's a pretty solid card. Then, as the ace spec, I played Prime Catcher because it is a searchable Gust with Irida, and we play 4 Irida. It lets us just find that whenever we want. And it's also a way to switch one more time. So if your Bibarel gets stuck, it's another way to go Gust and move it for game. Then I played 2 XP Share. These are pretty good for keeping energy in play, as I mentioned. Since we lost something like Raihan, we really want to get XP Share on our backup Feraligatrs, so when the active gets knocked out, we can keep the energies in play and not be struggling to attach and set up new attackers. For stadiums, I played 2 Artisan, just more ways to get basics out because I did want to make sure I was setting up a lot of basics as much as possible. And finally, for energy, I played 8 basic waters and a reversal. There's a chance you probably fall behind a prize or 2 as if you're not consistently getting Feraligatr out turn 2. Reversal energy just lets you pay for it pretty easily, and then 8 water felt like a good number with vessels as well. We don't want to be playing too many, but any less would make them hard to find. So that's the list that I played for the tournament. Now I just want to talk a little bit about maybe some changes I would make, as the deck did have a little bit of clumping issues. One of the issues I found was that when you're fully set up with Bibarel, there's almost too much basic search that can't be played with a full bench, and I found it clogged the draws with Industrious Incisors a lot. But at the same time, in another game, we actually, for some reason, still didn't find a ton of basic search. So basic search is something you could toy around with. I kind of like playing the items. Something I might change is maybe just not play the Artisans. I might opt for a different stadium. I'm not sure entirely what that would be, because the deck is not as item heavy as something like Chenpao, so I don't think we want to be playing Pokestop. You don't even necessarily need to play stadiums. Artisan is just another way to get basics out. But if you want to mess around with the deck and you find you're also having that same problem of clogging your hand too much with basic search that can't be played, cutting the Artisans, maybe just play a Vacuum for different utility. could be good since we don't really need to bump much anymore. Another thing was Prime Catcher is cool. It is a great card and searchable with Irida, but I actually think something like Neo Upper Energy would be better in this deck because the biggest problem is just consistently attacking with Feraligatr. That's all we really want to do, as it's a great Pokemon for prize trading if we can string them. But stringing them can be a problem sometimes, so Neo Upper Energy would be a good thing if we whiff the turn 1 attachment, don't really have a lot of energy access in general, but I happen to draw into Neo Upper, I can just stick that on a Feraligatr turn 2 and don't have to waste Star Portal for like 1 energy yet. And then the final thing was, once the energy are kind of put into play, Star Portal is used, we want to keep them in play for as long as possible, so XP shares. I found that I wasn't always finding them that easily when I needed to, and whiffing the XP share when a Pokemon was knocked out would then not allow me to attack the next turn. Potentially playing something like an Arven would be decent in the deck. And if you are playing just like one of Arven, I wonder even if Lumineon could be decent in the deck. You don't want to add too many liabilities, but there's just a couple options to maybe get XP shares a little more reliably. As an example for stadiums, as I mentioned that the Artisans could be clogging a little bit too much basic search, something like Town Store instead could be good to get the XP shares a little bit easier and put them into play faster before they're kind of just dead and now I don't have energies on board any longer. So just spitballing some ideas. The deck hasn't been tested a whole bunch. It was just kind of the games we played in that round that Feraligatr maybe clunked a little bit more than I'd like to, but I think the deck still has a lot of potential as an archetype. I think it was just a little bit of bad variance with some slight tweaking. It could be really good. I would recommend trying it. It might not be a tier 1 meta deck, but it is a pretty cool, potentially rogue, even like tier 2, 3 deck, and I think it's worth trying. And if you, like I said earlier, if you haven't seen the games it played in and you want to check out some gameplay for it, I'll have the link in the description to check out Hitmonchanning's rounds, and you can check out the rest of the tournament while you're there as they come up. With that said, hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, comment below what you think of Feraligatr as an archetype, what you might change in the future, and subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one.